Our next session is hosted by our very own assistant organist, Gabriel Arregui, and he's amazing. And this is a really fun session. We've done this before as a forum for the congregation. Very popular, very well attended. And if you need any more of the handouts, Brooks is printing some more, so they will be coming. And so we'll wander around, and if you don't have one, we'll try to get you one. So without further ado, I will present our very own Gabriel.
Try and get within visual range of all of you. Don't worry about the handouts. We're not going to get to those for a while. So by the time Brooks gets here with them, they will be ready to go. So today, hymnody. The whole point of this today is to give you an insight as to why you respond to certain hymns, certain genres, certain types of hymns in the way that you do. And I'm going to quote some interesting people that have a lot of very judgmental ideas about it. I'm not here to judge anything. I'm just here to present. So, and the first part of my talk will be a brief historical overview of Western hymnody. Now, don't be alarmed, because I've allotted myself 4 minutes to cover 5,000 years worth of hymnody. So this will be the Reader's Digest / Evelyn Wood course in Western hymnody. And then once we've done that, we'll turn to our handouts and we'll go through those, and afterwards we'll have plenty of time to have questions. And I'm going to ask people along the way. I'm going to ask some of your opinions on things. But at the end of the presentation, we'll have plenty of time for me to answer your questions. Okay. Anybody else need handouts? There's some back there. Okay. So, music in worship. Well, there's one back there. Music in worship goes back a long ways. Even you go back to the Bible. The children of Israel sang when crossing the Red Sea. There's lots of different allusions to it, to music in Scripture. In the Jewish tradition, that's where we go farther back, is the technique or the way of singing, which is called their ancient cantillation, the ancient Jewish cantillation. And what it is in some cases it's monotoning certain words and then responses with the hallelujah or the amen. And then there's some melismatic sort of, which means you go up and down, and it's very florid and elaborate. And it gives a little bit extra emotion to the music and to the words, which is really why we chant things instead of just say them all the time. I grew very fond. When I lived in Los Angeles, I used to play for the High Holy Days at University Synagogue in Brentwood, and I really developed an affection for their chanting, especially when they have the young men, the bar mitzvahs, and all come up and chant. It's really very sweet. And so that was an integral part of the worship, and it was where it was established, the whole concept of antiphonal singing, where one side would sing something, the other side would repeat, or responsorial, where there was a cantor and the congregation would repeat. Well, that sounds very familiar, because what happened was it evolved into Gregorian chant, of course, and through the Roman Church. And it was a real evolution. It wasn't a copying of the text. Of course, it went through the alembic of Christianity and the Christian Church and became the focus for several centuries. And of course, the language was Latin. And That continued on through polyphony, when polyphony began to evolve in the 14th century, the 15th century. It reached its apex just before 1600, where you have the music of Palestrina and Victoria and many others like that. But still, up to that point in the liturgy, the congregation was silent. And that was all done for them by the choir or whoever was singing. But then the Reformation came and things started changing a bit. There were hymns written in the vernacular. And that was the first time with Luther. He wrote original texts, and that gradually evolved into the German chorale, which we know, and that was really at the forefront of congregational singing for quite a long time. Like I say, Luther wrote his own texts. Calvin, however, being rather more uptight, only scripture could be used as a text. And what came out of that were metrical psalms. We have lots of them in the 82 hymnal. The Genevan and Scottish psalters came. And those were all metrical psalms that sound very much like hymns. And that also took place in the English church. Later in the 17th and early 18th centuries, then non-scriptural poetry came in with the advent of Isaac Watts, and the Wesleys certainly wrote thousands and thousands of hymns. And so those come to us, and some of them, things started to unravel a little bit there into the 19th century when Romanticism became excessive in music. And there was a lot more sentimentality and weakness. And in the structure of the music itself, again, it's not a judgment, this is an objective musical look. There were stronger, more stately and dignified hymns were abandoned for more personal, me-based songs that were gospel songs that were predominantly used for the evangelistic crusades of the 19th century. So, and then of course we have what we have today, which everybody wants to do everything. So you have to pick and choose carefully how you're going to put it together in the liturgy. But that's, effectively that's our little brief history of hymnody. So next what I'd like to do is we're going to use the handouts to sing, and I have selected 3 distinctively traditional Anglican hymns. And there's a lot of traditional hymns, but some of these are specifically in the Anglican tradition, as you'll see. I don't know any other denomination that sings Come Labor On, for example. But it's well known to us. And the organist, the music director here, Martin, is very fond of programming that on Labor Day weekend. Just one more thing I forgot to include. I found, as I was preparing for this, I found a hilarious quote by Clement of Alexandria, who this was again back there when instrumental music and movement, liturgical dance, if you will, was banned from the church, and only vocal music was acceptable. Now, Clement seems to have some strong opinions, and I just can't resist sharing just a little bit of these. So he wrote this about church music in the 2nd century. Let revelry keep away from our national entertainers, and foolish virgins too, but revel in intemperance. For revelry is an inebriating pipe, the chain of an amatory bridge that is of sorrow. And let love and intoxication and senseless passions be removed from our choir. Burlesque singing is the boon companion of drunkenness. A night spent over drink invites drunkenness, well duh. Rouses lust and is audacious in deeds of shame. And he goes on like in this vein for quite some time, and then he takes a whack at some of the chromatic harmonies. But grave and modest strains say farewell to the turbulence of drunkenness. Chromatic harmonies are therefore to be abandoned to immodest revels and to florid and meretricious music. So I think Clement might have just been a little judgy, but it could be. All right, so Paul's gonna let me know if you can't hear what I'm saying over here. But first, I want to start by singing the first 3 hymns. We'll just do one verse. We might stop, I don't know, we'll see. But most importantly, as you sing these hymns, in your imagination, I know you're all vergers, but imagine that you are visiting somewhere, and there are other vergers who are doing it. You are sitting in the congregation. And so as you sing these hymns, in your imagination, as we sing them now, what do you imagine might be happening up in the chancel? And where do you think these hymns might fit into the Sunday liturgy? What is the dean doing, or the rector doing? What is the deacon doing? Where are the vergers? Is the thurifer swinging their thurible? How does the stained glass reflect the light? These are just for personal for you, to see how you feel as we sing those hymns. The first one we're going to do is 432, and I picked this one because we're singing this one as the closing hymn on Sunday morning. It's nice to know you can sing. I'm going to just bring this over here. I don't think I can mess with the piano, and I don't have to keep getting up. So, anybody, how did you respond to this? How did you feel? Anybody?
Sequence.
What do you imagine is happening in the liturgy, or where do you think this would fit in best?
It's a sequence.
Sequence. Okay. Processional recession could be a sequence hymn, right? Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. Let's turn the page. These are all familiar. And don't just listen to the music, really get into particularly the first verse of 625, Ye Holy Angels Bright. This was one of the first hymns that made an impression on me when I joined the Episcopal Church. I actually came here to sing when I was in high school. I was raised Seventh-day-Adventist, so that's quite a switch. But this particular hymn spoke a lot to me. So just look at the quality of the poetry and see what you think. Does the poetry go with the music? Is it strong? It's pretty strong poetry, and it's a very lofty theme. See what you think as far as the music is concerned. I personally think that makes a great retiring procession. And I don't know about you, for me, I find, when I first sang this, I thought, wow, where has this music been all my life? It really came from a very different tradition than I was used to. I wasn't just Seventh-day Adventist. It was a Mexican, I grew up in a Mexican household. And we had very, very different, I grew up with very different music. And yet, this drew me in, somehow. Next, this is probably the most Anglican hymn that we're doing, is number 541. I love it. And let's see if I can remember the harmonization. Have any reactions? How does that make you feel? Do you see it at any particular point in the liturgy? If you're sitting there in the congregation singing this, what do you think might be going on? What do you think would be ideal? Yes?
I think it's a recession.
Yeah? I agree. I programmed it once as an opening for the procession. Now, it doesn't work. It really has to be at the end, I think.
The text is from last Sunday's Gospel, where the Lord is sending the Master is sending the laborers into the vineyard. So
yes.
Maybe a sequence hymn for this one.
Maybe a sequence hymn for last week.
Right. Yeah. So, anybody else have any reactions to these? These are what we're used to in the Episcopal, or at least when I came into the Episcopal Church and we started, when I first started singing here, I felt like a sponge. All this new music that I had not encountered before, and I found it very, very inspiring. That's me. Not everybody feels that way. So, let's take a look. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I would just say one of the things interesting about this hymn is that the words by Jane Laurie Bothwick, and from a time when women were really starting to write hymns, but usually not the music. They probably wrote music, but it wasn't getting published, but the poetry got published.
There's a switch on this, right? So I don't have to keep going back and forth. Pull this out here. So this is what we're very much familiar with and have grown to love. Now, let's talk a little bit about gospel songs and what the difference is between. Does anybody have any idea what you would say if somebody asked you what the difference between a hymn and a gospel song is? Anybody? Tempo, okay. Could be. Mm-hmm.
If there's sung by the congregation, a gospel song might be sung by an ensemble.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes?
Well, gospel has roots in spiritual, have roots in being sang in the back.
Right.
Call and response.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hard to be recognized in the Episcopal Church until recently.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, these are all good points. I can't hear you, sorry.
Repeat the question.
Repeat the questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. So, gospel, oh yes.
I just noticed like the gospel ones have refrain though.
Yeah.
I noticed gospels have the gospel ones have refrains. It's like verse then refrain, where hymns don't really have that. It's just a poem.
Right. Yeah, these are all really good points, and there's a ton of exceptions to all of them. So, in tempo, in terms of refrains, in terms of who sings them, really, how I think of a hymn is that it is a collective offering of a worshiping congregation, praising in an objective way. In other words, it's about everyone. It is the very definition of the corporate voice, and that is brought into hymns. Gospel songs generally are more self-focused about one's own personal experience. They use a lot of I and me language, and this is what God did for me. And right, you mentioned solo singing for the gospel songs. It's a little harder to be so corporate with when it's I and me, and yet some of them are very strong.
What a lot of people need to remember or know is that a lot of the gospel songs come from the times of slavery and the Negro spirituals that were sung as a way of communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and she mentioned that over here. And that grew into the evangelistic crusades and that tradition in the 19th century. It sort of evolved into that. There's someone else over here.
Yes, what you said about I focus versus us. I think of a hymn is the church's one foundation is Jesus Christ our Lord. And a gospel song is I come to the garden alone when the dew is still on the roses. I mean, it's so emotional and it's all about me. So it's placing my faith in the realm of emotion and rather than belief or commitment.
Yes, that's very true. But there are different kinds of emotions, and hymns produce a different kind of emotion. I think most people would say they're a little stronger rather than so sentimental. Right, exactly. But we're not through with this concept yet. We're going to see some really fun exceptions. But for right now, let's do a quintessential example. Let's sing A Wonderful Savior is Jesus My Lord. Some of you may notice that you come from different traditions. This is something I grew up with. In fact, I copied this out of the Adventist hymnal. I'm guessing you can tell I sat through a few evangelistic crusades when I was little. So this is one, it's, what context would this work best in? Corporate worship, or maybe just a few people singing together, in somebody's living room, or some other place. This is definitely a a gospel song. I don't think anybody would argue with that. It's got limited harmonic. It has 1, 2, 3, basically 3 chords with a little bit more, and it's in 6/8 time, which is often a favorite of gospel songs because you can really swing them and really get them going. Which
lend itself to a guitar.
Pardon me?
Lend itself to a guitar.
It lends itself to guitar, yes.
Most hymns do not.
Yeah, most hymns do not. That is quite correct. Gospel songs work very well with guitar, absolutely. Okay, now, I'm really throwing it in here. Everybody has an opinion about Amazing Grace. So I want to sing this one, and then I want to sing the original tune, which nobody seems to know. But let's do that. Let's sing Amazing Grace that we all know. I've got to hear what people feel. What does that make you feel when you hear Amazing Grace? It's going to be a lot of different things. Anybody?
It makes me cry.
I'm sorry?
It makes me cry.
I can't hear you say it. Makes you cry. Okay. Yes. It has a lot of emotion. I've heard it played by a bagpiper at funerals. Yes.
I think of my mother who absolutely forbade us to have this at her funeral, and I left the same instruction in my funeral. There's a meme that goes around on Facebook. If you could banish a hymn from your church for a year for like a donation of $100, what would it be? This is what I would banish. It's not that it's so bad, it's that we hear it all the time. All the blessed.
That's the thing. People that come to church maybe for a funeral that are there otherwise a couple of times, it's what they know. And it's very familiar. Yes.
It makes me think of like light and hope, like seeing something new and being renewed, redeemed, like there's hope after something.
Okay. Oh, we got lots of yay.
Yeah, I used to have a very negative opinion, like some other people, and I respect that. But when I actually sat and read and meditated with the words, especially the one that's optional, when we've been there 10,000 years, thinking about eternity, it just puts it in a whole different light. And now I cry every time I sing it.
Thank you. And back there.
Because we see it, funerals so often, it's very comforting. But I see that this has kind of gotten into our national consciousness as a secular hymn in a lot of ways. Because no matter where we come from, we all sort of know it.
Right.
So I never liked it either, but the more that I've thought about that, that's where I've arrived.
I'm not going to say who it is, but somebody very similar to what you and your mother said. If anybody does this at my funeral, I'm going to come back as a poltergeist, and you're going to be sorry. But some people really love it. Now, we have a lot of okay, so there's words, and we obviously have a lot of associations with this particular tune. Now let's hear the original tune. Do your best and see what you think, and see if it serves the text about the same, or better, or worse, or if you feel any differently about it. Same words, different tune. What do you think? Don't like it? It works? Okay. Sounds like a Christmas carol. That's fun. Yeah, a lullaby. Yeah. Okay. I just think it's fun. We have these concepts of hymns, and we really have to think about, is it the words that I like, or is it the music, or is it a combination of the two? Yes.
I want to ask the same question now. If you could, the question that was asked over here, if you could banish a hymn, would you banish this hymn, the same words with a different tune? So that's.
I'd like to know that.
I'd like to know the answer to that.
Yeah. No, I just wanted that as an example of taking the words of something that is uber familiar and putting it to a different tune and see. I mean, it's very stylistic. It sounds like a lot of early 19th century hymns. Yes.
I do a lot of prison ministry work, and yes, we use this a lot. But we also change the tune often. You'd be surprised how well this fits and changes the emphasis if you keep singing to the house of the rising sun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Our hymnal, I think it's even in the congregational edition, I'm not sure, or maybe it's just the organist edition. It has there's wonderful indices at the back, and there's the metrical index, which you can match different words with different hymns, and it really works. And of course, you know that Amazing Grace can also be sung to the theme tune of Gilligan's Island, so people know that. Yeah. there's a few ones. Pardon me? And Jingle Bells. Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, thank you. Okay. All right. So, to finish off here with this part of it, I want to try, okay, we talked about, I talked about hymns being an expression of corporate worship, and then gospel songs being about me. Now, let's turn to another incredibly Anglican hymn by Herbert Howells, of all people. All my hope on God is founded. Notice the words, notice the music, and let's sing through the first verse. Is that a gospel? It's an I song. It's a me song. Not really a gospel song, though. Would you call it? I have sung this in more than one English cathedral, so even song. So now let's take a look at the gospel song right next to it and see if there's any I or if it's more appropriate. We've been getting it here. But so everything. So there are exceptions to everything. I think All My Hope on God is Founded is certainly a mainstay of traditional Anglican hymns. hymns, and yet it's definitely an I and me hymn. And then there shall be showers of blessing. It's in 6/8 time. It's got a catchy little swingy rhythm, but the words are corporate. It's about all of us. So you don't want to get too opinionated on a lot of things. I've learned that over the years. I was quite a bit more rigid than I am now 30 years ago. So it's nice to get to that point. So, concluding, comments before the questions, I personally believe that cathedral music or music in the parish is really, it's not an entity, it's not a separate entity unto itself. It is the handmaid of liturgy. Its purpose is to elevate and enhance the word through the medium of music. Liturgy is literally the work of the people. And so music is an integral part of liturgical worship. I have a friend who is in another denomination the priest is very anti-music, although he does very, very great music. But it feels that it detracts from, and they don't understand that music is not, we're not there to draw attention to the music, we're there to enhance the action of what's going on. And we're all a part of that, the vergers especially too. You kind of run the show here. So for the person in the pew, that's in the pew week after week, what this work of the people, this translates into, is active participation, whether you're actually singing or just listening. I remember back in, 1996, I think I went to the National Conference of the Association of Anglican Musicians. And I went early and I went to Sunday morning Mass at St. Paul's K Street. And they sang, the choir, they did the Duruflé Missa Cum Jubilum for just unison men's voices on chant and organ. And as I stood there listening to it, I thought, wow, I don't feel like I've ever participated more fully in a liturgy when I'm just standing here listening. It's an incredible experience. So there is a time and place for people to join in and sing, and it's certainly much more free now. It's not like it was before the Reformation. But when you do a choral mass or something, if you stay engaged with what's going on, you know the words. You can hear a different musical expression of them, and that's what I encourage people that are in the pew to think about, and how they can actively participate just by listening. So, anyway, that is what I have brought today. I'm happy to open the floor up for, I don't know how much time we have, we got some time, for questions. Yes? What is my opinion on praise bands? I know that, when I lived in LA, I actually started working beside the Episcopal Church. I worked at the Seventh-day Adventist Church as organist. I didn't tell them I was Adventist because that opens up a whole can of worms, right? Grown up Adventist. And they went very slowly from a more traditional, like I got used to, and they got into the praise band thing. And, it's not up to me to pass judgment on it, but all I can say on that is your goal about performing. I got the impression that it was about, it's about listening and looking here at what's going on here. And if it's ego-based, then it's a problem. If it's not, if it's truly not, then I don't see the problem with it, as long as it fits the congregation and it fits the community and the people that would like to have it. So that's my thought on praise bands. Yes?
As an organist, what is your thought about the prelude and postlude? That's usually when everybody's picking up their things and leaving or coming. And in our church, it's been a little bit of a controversy because as soon as the postlude especially begins, there's a segment that wants everybody to sit down and be quiet and listen to only the organist and not move. So I don't know what your thoughts
I
are on
am
that.
really uncomfortable with that. I again, because I do not believe that that music in a church, in a liturgy, should be a performance. If somebody wants to sit and listen, great. If they want to get up and go, I don't have any problem with that. The one thing I would say is for prelude and postlude, it's really nice if you're not interested in the music to either be silent or if you need to talk, go outside, because there are other people that want to hear it, and we put notices in our bulletin to that effect. If you are not staying for the voluntary, please leave quietly so that those who remain can reflect or pray or whatever. And it's just a question of respect, I think. But no, I've known people, my same friends, he requires the choir to sit down and wait for the end of the postlude. I will never do that. That's tantamount to because not everybody likes it. You know, we have to be here for everyone. And if you don't like loud organ music or some of the crazy French stuff I play, absolutely, I'm not offended in any way.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for the service last night. You're lovely. I've been in choir almost my entire life, since I was 9, of one kind or the other, and I've studied about it and learned a lot about it. And people talk about sports teams encouraging cooperation. But in sports, there's always somebody against somebody else. And music is the one thing that only works if everybody is trying to be together. And that's not only true in a performance, but it's true in church. As we sing together, we breathe together, and even without saying, now this is, we're one, we're a body, it's solidarity, we feel that. You feel singing in your entire body. It changes you. There's science that supports this, that it does good things for your immune system, for instance. And so as part of our worship, when we sing together, it's uniting us in all kinds of ways that aren't conscious for us. And as you said, even those who don't feel able to sing or aren't willing to sing, we're surrounding them with this vibration that can change their lives. And so devolving into a praise band where it's a performance instead of everyone here is singing and, God loves us however we sound, we know that.
Right.
I would hate to ever see us lose congregational singing.
No.
It's so wonderful.
No, yes, you make really good points. I also, as if I'm not busy enough, I play a 7:30 Roman Catholic Mass before I come here on Sunday mornings. And they actually sing. It's the only place I've been. I've been in numerous Catholic churches, and their solution to participation is to have a cantor singing a solo up there when everybody's... And, okay, if you think that's participation, I guess, but here I think not everybody... we don't know why people don't sing. Either they don't know the music, or they're self-conscious about their voice, or, whatever, and it may not even be a legitimate. I think everybody should sing if they can, or even if they think they don't sound good. Hymns belong to the people in the pew more than anything, and I really encourage that. And if you really can't sing, at least follow along. You can hum the words. Hum the tune to yourself, reading the words. I think that's really important for everybody to feel included, not just people who think that, they have a good voice, they can sing, or the choir can sing. No, it's did I see? No? Okay. Anyone else? All right. right. Well, I thank you so much for your time today. I'm glad to see you. It was nice to play Evensong. I had not been out to Bishop. I used to play there every month for their Evensong until I came here, actually, back in 2015. And so it was nice to go back to that little chapel. It's very sweet. And I look forward to seeing you all on Sunday morning.